Hey everybody, welcome to Spreadsheet Basics for Farmers. So, hi all of you. Hi Ben, nice to see you there. Hi Sarah. Looks like there's a bunch of people out there watching, getting ready to get Spreadsheet Basic. um, so okay, I got some slides. I'm going to introduce myself first for those of you who don't know me. Hi Crystal, nice to see you. And then I'm going to jump into what we're going to see today. So this is me. I'm Dan Brisebois. I am one of the farmers at Tournesol Cooperative Farm. We're a worker co-op with 9 members and almost 20 employees. And we're based in Les Cèdres, Quebec, which is just outside of Montreal in Canada. And hi, Kara. Nice to see you out there. And we are predominant. Well, we started off as vegetable growers. Started off as predominantly vegetable growers, but we also grow seeds, and so we sell vegetables through our 500-member CSA, and we also sell seeds through an online store. And at this point, we actually sell more seeds than we do vegetables, but we sell a lot of both of them. And so those are kind of the farming hats that I wear. And so that's who I am. And today, I'm talking about Spreadsheet Basics for Farmers. And what I have in mind is I'm going to start off talking a bit about how I'm going to teach these basics, like what the approach is I'm taking. And then the 4 sort of categories I'm going to tackle. The first one is we're going to look at cleaning up data. So you have some information and just cleaning it up so that you can use it better with spreadsheet stuff. And then I'll talk about making a report, which is kind of how to take that data and look at it a different way. And then setting up a master list. So there's going to be some challenges with the data we're going to look at. So in that third step, we're going to look at how to kind of set up better from the beginning, and then setting up a log with that master list. So that's the workflow that I have in mind. And in each of these pieces, I'm going to explore different formulas and spreadsheet tricks. It's going to be very spreadsheet based, and I guess that brings us to how I'm going to teach these basics. So I'm going to share a spreadsheet with you all in a moment, and I'm going to look at that spreadsheet and kind of try to approach it the way that I look at a spreadsheet, and I'm going to try to point out things that I see in it so that you can learn what to see with it also. And so with that, without much more ado, it's spreadsheet time. And so this is a link that's going to get you to a landing page that you can get to the spreadsheet I'm going to deal with. You can also, this is actually the spreadsheet itself that you could jump into. If you get to the other one, it clicks on a thing that you can dial through to the spreadsheet. So you are all welcome to join into that sheet. But you should keep your eyes on this browser, leave the spreadsheet in another browser, because this is where the action is taking place. And so there are a few tabs. So I mean, there's a welcome. Actually, I got to share my screen so that you see it all. Is this okay? Making sure I'm sharing the right screen. Okay, so this is what you'll see when you jump into it. Yeah, and let me just change I see a bunch of people upstairs who are currently looking at this sheet. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. So this first page, maybe a little bit smaller. This first page tells you how to make a copy for yourself. The second page is the concepts I'm actually going through. So afterwards, if you want to go back and look at this, this is what I'm going to do as I look at these sheets. And then I'll do extra stuff too, but this is kind of the main thing I'm thinking of. And so we're going to start off with some spreadsheet information. Isaac asks, can you have the video after? So I'm recording this, and tomorrow morning I'm going to share it in my weekly email, and it's going to be up for about a month or so, so you'll be able to watch it afterwards without problem if there's anything that you want to review afterwards. So yeah, and feel free to ask questions as you wish in the chat, and I I will definitely answer them either now or by the end of the presentation. There'll definitely be time at the end, kind of a free time where you can ask questions also, but ask them as they come to you. So I've put together a harvest log or a harvest record, and I've done so this would be a record, something that you would a record, a spreadsheet that you would track your harvest information in every day, what you harvested and how much. And there's a couple things that I want to show off the bat that I guess things to not do to make sure your spreadsheet work better. And so the first thing I'm going to look at is in column A, there's a harvest day, so the date. And there are a couple different dates here, and they are not good ways to look at dates. The first, so a date is easy, when you're in a spreadsheet, and some spreadsheets, so I'm using Google Sheets, and I like Google Sheets for a lot of reasons, predominantly because it's very easy to share with other people. And we work on a cooperative farm, so it's very easy to collaborate. You can use Excel or whatever spreadsheet you like, and almost everything I'm showing you here, I think everything I'm showing you can be done in Excel, and you can probably do it in Open Office and a number of other apps. There's maybe one formula that's really restricted to Excel and Google Sheets. So the first thing that I want to explain is that dates are, as a farmer, you're often dealing with dates, and they're pretty important to understand how dates work. And a date is actually a number. It's not just some words that you've typed in. And so if I hover over the second, maybe I'll make this a bit bigger. If I hover over the second date, you can see, if I hover over it, you can see in the toolbar that it's a date format there. And if I hover over the next one, the same thing. Whereas if I hover the first one, it's just words. So depending how you type things in, and now June is a word that usually if you write something like June 1, it's going to transform it into a date. Whereas if you were to write something like, September 1, it might not accept that. It's just going to keep it as a word. And so June 1st, it doesn't consider it, it's a word. Now, so June 1st is not actually going to be something you can easily work with later on if you're trying to work with dates. And so you'd be better off to write something like 6-1, which would give you a date. Now, the next two are also formatted similarly. And what I don't like just seeing this is 1/6 and 6/1, you might not know how, depending where you are in the world, that one of them is going to be January 6th and one of them is going to be the 6th of June. But before I get there, I guess I want to show one more thing about them being numbers is if I highlight and if I go to the format and I put it as automatic, turns them into a number, you can see these are actually numbers. And these are the numbers from a date around 1900 and the number of days that have passed since then. And you don't need to know that part, but just to know that it is a specific number, the date. And so when you put a format, you're masking the fact that it's a date. Now, if you click on the format button here, that 1, 2, 3, there's usually going to be a default based on the setting where you are. So here, this is the setting that shows that it's month, day, year. There's a setting that I like. You can also you can also scroll down to the bottom to custom date and time, and you can look at all kinds of other settings that you might put in. Stuff that involves a day number, or you could have settings that involve specific months, being able to see them. And if you do that, then you do see that there's a difference between those numbers. One thing that also happens once it is a number in Google Sheets specifically, if you double click on the date, it's going to show you the calendar view of what it is. So if I see that that's January 6th and I want June 1st, I can scroll down like a calendar and choose June 1st. So that's the first thing that I want to highlight, is that dates are a real thing and that you should treat them as real things. And so by formatting, and then also usually doing 6-1 or 6/1 are ways that you can put in a date. That's a real brief introduction to dates. And I'm not going to talk about dates tons more. I just wanted to highlight that there. The other thing is here, the information. So on June 1st, we're going to harvest arugula, 21 pounds. On June 1st, we're not going to, but we did harvest. This is a harvest record. We've harvested 96 bunches of carrots and 100 bunches of kale. Now, this is another problem to set up spreadsheets, is to have the numbers and the words together. And in spreadsheet language, you talk about numbers, or I guess values, and strings. And strings are the words. And if I put a number and words together, it turns the whole thing into a word or a string. And I can't really do anything with it. So if I wanted to add this, I want to do equals 21 bunches and then times, I don't know, 2, it gives me an error message because this is not a number. So it's important to separate your numbers from your words. So I'm going to write 21 here, and then I have another column called units where I'll write LBS or pounds or however you wish to do it. And now that I've done that, this formula now it works. So the 21 times 2 gives 42. And so I'll just fix this here too with the 96. Excuse me, sorry about that. The bunches, and then 100 bunches. And so this is how to format the data in a way that makes it easier to use formulas on it to do the spreadsheet math. And I'm just gonna, so on the side I've hidden a bunch of other data. So this is all the other data that I've included there. Oh, it looks like I lost all my units that I had put beforehand. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. We're not going to really deal with units right here. But here is the data, and you can see I've formatted. This is the way I like to format dates: year, month, day, because it's easy to sort them afterwards, which we'll look at in a moment. So here is the information, and so I was going to do this a little bit later, but I'll do this right now. If you highlight all your information, and then you click on, let's make it so it's more than 3. There's a little funnel here, a little triangle with a stick. This is a funnel. It says remove filter. I'm going to remove the filter. But if I add a filter, so if I hover over it, it says create a filter, and I click on it. It adds these little triangles behind each of these crops, and I can go or each of the headers, and I can click on one of them, and I can see all the items in it. And if I go to clear, and let's say I just go on carrot, which is a typo, it looks like, carrots, I can see everything that I've selected there. So we're going to come back to that in a moment. But I'm just going to go here, and I'm going to write lettuce, click on the lettuce, and here I'm going to put these down in different each units. And then another lettuce that I'm going to do is lettuce mix, and I'll put that down in pounds. And to show how you could go through and navigate this information quickly. Okay, but now, so here's all this harvest data. What are you going to do with it? So this is where I'm going to go, and I'm going to look at making a report. And so report is a snapshot of the information that's easier to work with. And so in the report, in the make a report tab, I'm going to start off, I'm going to do equals, and I'm going to write the word unique. I'm going to open a parentheses, and then I'm going to highlight all the data that's in this, all the crops in the spreadsheet. And it ends off with B73, and I'm going to close the parentheses, and now it shows me one copy of each word that is in that list. And I highlighted all the way down to B73. And what that means, if I add another crop, let's say I add rutabaga to this list, it doesn't show up right here. Now, if in this formula instead, what I should show is that the formula is only in cell A2. If I go into one of the other cells and I start to write something else, it's going to fill up the space that's being filled, and it's going to break the formula. So it gives a reference error. So I delete that, and then the information shows up. And this is called an array formula. And now in that formula, the range is B2 all the way to B73. If I go in and I get rid of that last 73, I see rutabaga appears at the end. And what it basically does is it just extends anything I add further down in B is going to show up there. So if I add chard, it now shows up at the bottom of the list. Tomatoes. Even if I go down to a row 1071 and I write peppers, I go here, it's going to show up at the bottom of the list because I wrote it's not closed that B. If there's no number after. If I put in and put B73, it's just going to show me up to the 73rd row. And if I get rid of it, it's showing me everything there. Now, so what I've just done is I'm seeing a summary of all the crops that are in there. You'll notice they're not in alphabetical order. So I'm going to click on it. I'm going to add. So there's another formula. I'll just put in the next column, equals sort. I'm going to open parentheses, and I'm going to highlight everything in column A and close the parentheses, and it shows me the same information in order, in alphabetical order. Now I can go and I already have my unique formula. I can write the word sort first, open parentheses, and then have the other unique nested in it, or the other formula nested in it. And I click, and so both formulas are happening one after the other in the same space. So now I have a list of all the crops. And so one of the things you can see, well, I'll come back to some of these typos and these funny spellings later on. But what I wanted to look at next is what do you do? So I'm making a report, and there's a formula that I want to show called equals sum if. And this formula is going to add things up, sum them up. Is going to sum them up. Somebody asked, you can't fully see column A. It seems to appear in the screen. If anyone else can't see column A, please tell me. But I do think I think I can see it right here. So I'm doing equals sum if. I'm opening parentheses, and I'm going back to that first page. And anything that's in, I'm summing up anything that's okay. People are saying. Okay, maybe I'm taking too much space. I'm gonna just. Okay. So Nick says click full toggle screen button, and it helps. That might. I don't specifically see the same thing that you're seeing. I'm gonna shrink though my screen to 125% and try to get into a smaller area, and I hope that works also. Okay, so back to here. I'm doing equals sum if. I open the parentheses, and in the data, I'm going to highlight column B, and then I'm going to do. So this is all of column B, not just a specific range, the whole range of the column, comma, and then the thing I'm looking up is the word arugula, which is A2. I'm going to do a hyphen, not a hyphen, a comma, and then I'm going to highlight column C, which is what I want to add up. And this means that it's looking for all the instances of B of the word arugula, and then add up everything from C. I do close the parentheses, enter, and then it gives me the number 134. So let's check that information. So I'm going to go into the filter. I'm going to clear everything. I'm going to go to arugula, and I'm going to show here. And I got these numbers here. And so if I add them together, so if, well, I can do two things. I could add them one by one, but also if I highlight them all, in the lower right, there's a little box that says min 17 right now. If I click on it, I can choose sum, and it says sum 134. So that is the answer I see right there, and that's what I'm hoping to see. Now I can, so this is a formula right here. I can copy that formula, so I'll do right click, choose the word copy, and then I'm going to just highlight all the cells, right click, and then paste, and that formula shows up everywhere. And now I'm seeing all the numbers that, so we're seeing carrot here, or if I go to green onions and I highlight that and I click on it, clear, and I do green onions, and there's only one that shows up, and that's okay. If I choose another word like radish, I click it, I highlight that, and that's 751 in the corner. And when I come here, I scroll down to 751. So this is now, they're linked together, and this is a dynamic sheet. So you can see the word peppers, which I added afterwards, chard, rutabaga, and tomatoes, all are at 0. If I were to go to the filter, select all, click on OK, and I scroll down, and here's rutabaga. If I add the word number 500, and it's going to show up here as 500. So as those other numbers change, this also changes. So here's a small report that shows me the total amount of what was harvested over the year. And there's another formula I'm going to show you called sum. So this is looking at one specific variable. So this is the crop, and then this is the quantity harvested. We'll do another formula over here. I'm going to go in and I'm going to click in just before I'm going to insert. So I'm highlighting column B, right clicking. I'm going to insert one column to the left. I don't want it to be all yellow. I'm going to reset the color. And here I'm going to add another formula called equals week num, which is week number. I'm going to click on A. I'm going to close the parentheses, and it shows me 23. And what that means is this is if January 1st is the week with is week 1, then this is the 23rd week of the year. And it's a way that I like to look at. If you've looked at other spreadsheets I've used, I like to work by week numbers as opposed to dates, because it's easier to work in 7-day chunks as opposed to 365 one-day chunks. So I'm going to copy this, or instead of copying it, there's also, if I hover over it, there's a little square on the bottom of the square. That's the fill handle. If I pull the fill handle all the way down, it's gonna copy that formula down, and I'm going all the way down to here, copying it. So here are the different weeks that are showing up. Now, I can so this is the week number. And so here, back to the report, what I want to show you is I'm going to do equals unique. Actually, I'll start off again. Equals sort, and then unique. And I'm going to open the parentheses, and I'm going to highlight all the data B2 and column C. I'm scrolling down a bit. I'm going to delete the end. So it just says B2 all the way to end of C, all of C. Close parentheses, enter. And now it shows me it's done a unique combination of both the week number and the crop. And it's done it in the order chronological of the week. So the formula is right here, filling up 2 columns. If I go into that formula, and so this is a little bit more, I'm getting a little bit to the edge of basics here, but if I go to the end, so the unique is the first value that I'm sorting. If I do a column after this, and I'm going to sort by column 2, and I'm going to do it says true, which means ascending. It's now sorting by the second column instead. And one thing about, so if I click on here, where is that? Okay, if I click on the formula, there's a little question mark that appears on the side on the left. If I click on that formula, it shows me the pieces of the formula. So there's unique is what I'm in right now. If I go to the sort, it says sort. The first part is the range. And if I click on it, it shows me a little text box beneath where I can see the different information that's part of the formula. So the sort, there's the range, which is the unique range. And then the sort column, I did column 2. And then is ascending true, or I could have written false, which means to be descending. So that's a way that you can look at your formulas. Also, if you wind up with a new formula you don't know, that's how you can kind of see the pieces of it and give a hint of how to use it. So here now I have week by week the crops that are being harvested. And if I were to use the sum if, the challenge with sum if is I can only look at one criteria. I can only look at arugula. I couldn't look at the arugula harvested specifically on week 23. So there's another formula which is a bit more powerful, sum ifs with an S. If I open parentheses, in this case, I start off by highlighting what I'm going to add at the end, which is the quantity harvested, column D. I put a parentheses, and then the first thing I'm going to evaluate is the week, so column B, comma, and then I'm looking at week 23. And I could just start off by closing my parentheses right now. And what I see is it says 612. So this is adding up everything. If I go in here and I clear it, I just want to see 23. It's all the items that are in week 23, all the crops, adding them all up is 612 there. Now, if I want to just look at specifically arugula, I'm going to add one more criteria at the end. So it still says adding up column D, where B is equal to D2, and column C is equal to E2. And then I'm going to close parentheses and enter, and it shows me the number 21, which is what it should show, which is 21, which is week 23, arugula 21. So I can drag this down, and it shows, so this is all the formulas. I'll just put them in yellow. It shows me the formulas. So this is the quantity harvested. It doesn't show me the formulas. It shows me the answer of each of these weeks. So if I go down and I'm going to look at kale on week 25, so I could go in, I could do week 25, and I can do another filter here of crop and narrow down to kale. There's these three values. If I highlight them in the bottom, it says 296, which is what I see here, 296. So now I have a dynamic sheet that is looking at two different variables. So this is kind of a creative report that is dynamic and that I can look at different information. I'm going to go back to the previous sheet. I'm going to clear these filters. One other thing I wanted to show at the beginning when I was talking about cleaning up data is I like to highlight all the data, and then on the top this is where the format bars, not format bars, format options are. If I click on the fill color, I can scroll down to alternating colors, and I can see different alternating colors to make it a little bit easier, especially when it's a long row of data, to see the different lines. So I could change the colors. I could either have a header or no header. And I'm going to do done. So here that information is there. And I also like to, in the top header, to highlight it and to click over the big fat B for bold, and which I guess it's already bold because I put a filter on it. So that's one thing I wanted to show. And then this is information. When I scroll down, it goes far down. I want to keep that header static. So there's two ways to do it. One is if you hover over at the top where there's a 1, there's the big fat line. If I hover over it, I see a little white glove. I could pull that line down, and now the top is locked to where I dragged it to. Another way to do that is in the view, it says freeze, and I can choose to freeze one row. And that's what I'm doing, is I'm freezing the row. I could also go in and I could freeze a column, and maybe I'm freezing one column, and so that one stays. In this case, it doesn't really matter because there's not a lot of data on the right, but if there was, that would be a valuable thing to do. So that's the other piece that I wanted to show you. So now, the way this kind of spreadsheet works, or would have worked probably, is you start a spreadsheet because you have something to do. And you start writing your dates, and you start writing the crops that you're going to be harvesting as you harvest them, and you start writing the yields, not the yields, the harvest numbers. Now, if you have whether it's you or somebody else, especially if you're sharing, as you're starting to type this stuff up, some people are going to you're going to make typos sometimes. So in this make a report, you can see on the left, there's 4 different ways that the word carrot is spelled. It's spelled with an S, without an S, one R, and then carotte in French. We're a bilingual farm where people speak in English and French, so type in English and French. And so all of these things, you probably want them to be added together. And because people put them in one by one, you can see that they're on different lines. So it might be that you go back to your data and you're going to click on crop, and you do clear, and then I'm going to write CAR, and I can see all the incidences of carrots. I click on them, and then I can go in and I could copy one and paste it on all the others so they look the same. And then in this place, now it's cleaned up. So that's a way you can go in and clean information after the fact. It's a little bit clunky, and you have to find the incidences. Like in here, there's green onions and scallions, which are probably the same crop. You know, there's hackeri, turnip hackeri, turnips. There's different information that you would have to go and hunt down. Now, another way to do this would be to start right from the beginning with the options so that people write them the same way. And that brings us to our third tab, which is going to be a master list. And so I'm actually going to take this, I'm going to highlight the list, the crops that we just did, right click on it, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to go into the master list, and I'm going to right click on A1, I'm going to paste it, and these crops are here. I don't need that yellow. And so I'm going to restart that. So I come here, I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to do paste. So if I click it on it, it brings me this formula that's right here. But I want to modify these words, so I don't want to keep the formula. So instead, I'm going to do right click, and I'm going to do paste special. And I'm going to scroll down to formula only. When I click on that, it's not formula only. Paste special, values only. And everything here is actually a value. So if I write words, it doesn't erase anything because there's no formula creating this. This is now static. So I can go through and I can look and just clean up the list. So arugula, carrots. I only want scallions once, so I'm going to put that there. You know, I don't want it to be hackeri. I just want it to be called turnips. So these are different lists. I'm going to, not different lists. I've cleaned up the list and made it a bit shorter. And then this is my master list, and I could add other crops too. And I just add them once because I'm going to refer to this on another sheet. So on tab 4, where we're setting up the log, I want something that's going to be, it's going to say date, and then it's going to say crop. And in the column B, I'm going to highlight the whole crop column. And the way I'm doing this, so you could actually drag it all the way down. I'm actually clicking on the first cell, and I'm pushing Shift, Command, or Control, and the arrow down, which highlights everything in going all the way down. I can also, if I do left or right, and it highlights all that. But so I want to start in B2, highlight all the way down, and then I'm going to right-click on it, and I'm going to scroll all the way down to this choice where it says View More Cell Actions, where it says Data Validation. I'm going to click on Data Validation. And so it's cell range, criteria. I want to choose the list from a range. And the range I'm choosing is, I click on the date, and then the range I'm choosing is going to be the range that's A2, and I'm going to get rid of the 19. So everything in A all the way to the end, from 2 onwards. And here it says there's a little tick box to show drop-down list in a cell. And if it's invalid data, I want to reject input, and I push save. And now, in those cells, I see a little arrow. If I click on it, I see the drop-down. And I can choose chard, arugula. So I could go in and I could write a date. So let's say I did June 1st. And so I don't like this date. I'll start off, I'm going to go in, I'm going to format it. I'm going to format it this way. And so that I can choose a date. And then I could, so here again, 6-1, I could choose another crop, arugula. And this will mean that everything that I'm entering is going to be written the same way, which makes it easier for formulas to refer to that information and work with that information. So that's so then I could have, you know, quantity, and it shows me you know, 60, or not, it shows me, I fill out, let's say I did 65 bunches of chard, arugula, 45 bunches. Now, I'm going to kind of, I want to show more what you can do kind of with this master list. So here, let's say it's the harvest units that you want to display. And we're always going to harvest arugula in pounds and carrots in bunches and chard is bunches, kale is bunches, lettuce is by the each, lettuce mix is by the pound. So I'm defining these terms. Now, in the setup log, I'm going to add a column called units. And with this, I'm going to write in equals, and then I'm using a formula X lookup, open parentheses, and what I'm searching for is the word chard. I'm going to do comma, and I'm searching for it in this column A, and I'm going to do comma, and when I find the answer, it's going to give me, when it finds that word, it's going to tell me the first incident that's in word B. And I'm going to do close parentheses, and so now it says bunches. And so this is a formula right here that's done this on the word chard. And where it says chard here, if I change this to, I'm going to be doing it by pounds, chard will now show up as pounds. And if I drag this down, it shows me the word associated with arugula. If I go to kale, it's a bunches. And then you can see an error message. And that error message, it says there's no value in the XLOOKUP evaluation. Now, if I go back to that formula of XLOOKUP, and at the end, I'm going to delete the parentheses, I'm going to put a comma, I can write what I wanted to say if there is an error. I could say no crop. And a no crop, because it's a word, it has to be within quotation marks. And then close parentheses. And so when there's an error, when it's an error message, it's going to just say no crop because there's no crop that you chose. Or I could have written maybe choose crop. And no, choose crop. Copy. What I'm trying to do is copy this, highlight this all, and then I'm going to paste it. And so as I choose other crops, that information shows up. Now, in this specific case, that would probably be an adequate, that's probably all the stuff that we want to do. But let's say we were doing some crop planning with this instead, and I'll just scroll this over here. So let's say we were doing crop planning, and we wanted to, so there's the harvest units, but let's say we want to do rows per bed, and we want to do, what would we do? In row spacing. And the rows per bed, let's say they're all, 3, 3, 3. This would probably make sense for a lot of them. 2 on peppers, 3, 3, 3. You choose your own rows per your bed. And then the in-row spacing, most of them, some of these are going to be direct seeded, but I'm just going to put them down at 1 foot, and maybe the tomatoes I'm going to put at 1.5 foot. This is just for math. It's not for a recommendation of how to plant. So I'm going to do some crop planning. And so let's say I have my crop that I'm choosing. Well, you know what I'm going to do with this sheet is I'm going to go in and I'm going to duplicate the whole sheet. So it makes a copy of 4. And what I'm going to be adding on here is, so there's the units is right now the XLOOKUP is looking those up, but I could also add in that I want to look up these other 2 things, and rows per bed and in-row spacing. Now, up to now, when I have a formula in the first row and I drag it all the way down, it enters in a way that makes a lot of sense. But if I take that same formula and I drag it to the right, now it says choose crop, even though there's a crop in there. And the reason for that is if I click in here and I can see this is B2, I'm looking in column A. But when I drag it over 1, it's now looking for C2 in column B. It's dragged everything over by 1 column. And so it's no longer looking up what I'm interested in. The way around that is in this formula, I can go in and I want to put a $sign in front of the variable that I want to keep constant. So I'm going to put the $sign in front of B because I always want B to be that first thing to be looking in column B. The 2, if it's in a different row, I don't mind if that changes, but I always want it to be referring to column B. And in the same thing, the A's, I want them to have a $sign in front of them. Now, there's a quick way to do that. You can highlight the range, and if you push function F4, it's gonna put $signs in front of everything. If you do it again, it's going to get rid of them. In the case of where you're just looking at a specific cell, this is B2, If I push F4, it gets rid of them. The first time I do F4, it puts a dollar sign in front of both the letter and the number. If I click it again, only the number. Click it again, only the letter. And that's what I want to keep it at. Now I'm going to pull this over. And so now in this case, it's showing the same result because I locked that B in. If I hadn't locked the B or anchored the B and just left it like that, and if I drag things over, now it's showing me the 3 and the 1, which are the values in the next columns of the chart. And I can drag this information down, and as I choose new crops, it's going to fill that information up. So with that, that's how you'd set up a log. Now, that kind of brings me to the end of sort of these basic spreadsheet tricks and tips that I wanted to walk you through. And I'm going to, before I go back to the slides, I'll just highlight again that on the Concepts tab has most of the concepts I just explained that you'd be interested in knowing. And then we kind of looked at cleaning up data, then turning that information, the data, into a report using unique and sort to figure out the crops in there or crops and weeks. And then I use SUMIF or SUMIFs to look up information. Then we created a master list where things are just listed once that we can refer to. And then with the log, we used a drop-down menu. We set up data validation to see a drop-down menu. And then we used XLOOKUP to look up information related to that crop. So those are, it's about a dozen or so different little things that we've looked at that can bring your spreadsheets to be a lot more useful for you. Now, I'm going to go back to the slides. And so we were just there, spreadsheet basics, spreadsheet.farm/basics. And so what's next? So the next thing is you should go and look at spreadsheets you already have in your live and look at them with new eyes. So go and look to see where you can replace, where you can maybe clean up dates or separate words from numbers if you're doing that kind of thing, where you can add in a lookup, like an XLOOKUP, where you can add in data validation. So go look at spreadsheets with new eyes. And also, right now, if you're like me, I'm getting into my winter season, so we're out of the field. Theoretically, now you have a lot of free time. I know that life is always more complicated than that, but now's the time to think through designing next year's spreadsheets with some of these concepts. Your harvest crop logs, crop plan, your sales records, these are all kinds of things, but any spreadsheet in your life you could relook at with these eyes. Now, I put out new spreadsheet tips every week with the Farmer Spreadsheet Academy. And so some of these things you're going to see in the spreadsheets that I put together and share, you'll see these kind of thinking behind it. I also have an online course called Farm Spreadsheets for All Seasons, which right now registration is closed, but it's about crop. Well, actually, it's a system based on spreadsheets where you do your crop planning and also do harvest management. Registration will open again sometime in December. If you're interested, keep an eye out. You'll see that. And then I also put together monthly online workshops like this, free online workshops to talk about spreadsheets and other types of things. Next month's online workshop is going to be about Crop Profitability 101, how to, it's kind of math-based, how to look at your crop mix and evaluate whether it makes sense financially for you to grow it. It's not going to be a full detailed analysis. We're going to look at some easy ways you can look at that information to do that. So I guess that one more thing is go get some of your data, harvest data, sales data. Oh, that's actually from a previous presentation floating. But yeah, go get some data and look at it. So thank you so much for walking through these spreadsheet basics with me. And we have some time for questions, comments, any kind of thing that you're thinking about before we sign off. And if you also have questions about other kinds of spreadsheet things that we didn't look at today, I would love to walk you through them. I'm glad. Thanks for. I'm glad you guys appreciate that. Yeah. So it's a pleasure to share this stuff with you. Now, if you have any questions, now's the time to ask them. But also, if you just want to go back and think through these things, poke around the spreadsheet, look at ways that you can use these, that's also good. And as oh, Amber and Matthew, you say you're a spreadsheet junkie, but you still learn some new stuff. Yeah, there's always new things to learn. I'm always learning new things. That's always exciting. So that's one reason I was excited to put this presentation together, to kind of show my favorites. Sarah, you wanted to ask a question about the spreadsheet course? You definitely can. I'm happy to talk about it. Just ask away. And while I wait for that question to come in, maybe I'll wait for the question and I'll just, yeah, so the spreadsheet course is a course, it's based on, I guess, what I think of as my spreadsheet masterpiece. So it's a series of crop plan spreadsheets that use these kind of formulas and also more complicated formulas to run you through all the thinking that you'd have to do when you're crop planning. And it comes along with a set of videos that walk you through each step of the way. So that's yeah, I don't know if I haven't seen your question come in yet. Okay. Oh, so this you're asking specifically in the course. So sheet 103, which is a course where which is a class where you're breaking down the blocks of the course, not the course, of your field. And it says, does it really matter if you include your walkway area? So when I think of a bed, I always include the middle of one path to the middle of another path. So if I think we have, like in our farm, we have 5-foot beds, 5-foot wide beds, and that means that from the middle of one tractor wheel to the middle of another tractor wheel, that's 5 feet. And it's a good number to be aware of, because you know, that's how everything that you have should be that size. You know, if you're more manual based, you might do it 3.5 feet between those two, like the center of one path to the next. So in the course itself, if you don't include so in the module 103 or sheet 103 that you're talking about, in that sheet, should I even draw it up? Yeah, let me bring it up and I will look at it and I'll just talk to you about it. Okay, so here's the actual sheet where you define your blocks. And so here, each block that you're going to be cropping around, the number of beds, and then this is what you're asking about, is where it says the bed width in feet. And so the way that I think about it is from the middle of one path to the middle of the next path. And then the next column is the bed feet per bed. That's the length of the bed, so 150-foot bed long. And the course itself, the spreadsheets really look in terms of bed feet. It's not looking at area in general. So if your beds are, you know, maybe 3 feet of actual growing area and 2 feet of path, and you choose to write 3 feet, it's not going to have an incidence on that number of bed feet in block. That's the full length that you have available to grow in that block. But what it will make a difference is the square feet in block. So you'll only be seeing the tillable area in there, and it's going to be smaller than if you included the area. And so if in this case, you know, the whole acreage that's being farmed is 2.3 acres in this, and that includes the paths. If you were to reduce that and have that 3, all these numbers, then it would be 1.47. So you can actually see there's almost an acre of path. You know, in terms of your organic certifier, they're going to be thinking about the area, path, and cultivating area. And when you're explaining to somebody what your farm size is, you're probably going to be thinking about the whole area. So I would include that bed width in there. But if you don't, it's actually not going to have an impact on the next sheets, because they're really just looking at the bed feet, so the length of it. It's really just for how you quantify the total area cropped. So I hope that doesn't lose too many people who are not involved in the course. But yeah, so Olivia asked, will I be able to see the video after the presentation? Yes, so it's recorded, and I'm going to send out an email tomorrow with with the video in it. My weekly Friday email is going to have the video in it. And on my blog, so if you want to see more of what I've done with spreadsheets, on my blog, which is at nanbriswa.com, I'll share that also. I'm going to go to Okay, 1 second. I'll just show you where you can find the information on the actual blog. So if you go to my blog, on the far right, do we see that on the screen yet? On the far right, there's a tab that says, in the toolbar, in the menu bar, it says Spreadsheets. You click on that, and it shows chronologically, or actually, most recently, the spreadsheet tips I've done over the years. And so that's a way that you can look at what I've done. And I do put, so that's, you can look at each piece that I published, and you can find different information. And there, you'll learn different things. If you go back to number 1 and work forward, you'll get some of the basics. There's some of them have YouTube videos, some of them don't. The earliest YouTube videos are a little bit more amateurish. Also, if you're looking for a full, complete spreadsheet system with everything locked in, then I do have an online course that opens for registration in a few weeks or a month or so. Again, for people who want to crop plan through the winter. So those are some of the options. And you can always send me an email too if you have a question. And it's a quick question. I'm happy to respond. I'm happy to reply to all your questions. I might be able to answer small answers more easily than more elaborate answers. But if you do send me something and I know I already have a video or an article about it, I'll just point you to that. So I'm always happy to do that. So Lara asks, how would you suggest entering data for crops that have multiple units, example, bunches and pounds? Well, this is a very good question. And I'm going to go back to, that previous sheet I was sharing. Where is that one? Is it? Yeah, it's right here. Okay. And so this is, so what happens here? Let's, if we go into, okay, I'm just going to start a new sheet and, yeah, I'll take this. No, I'll start a new sheet. Trying to think about how I'm going to tackle this. I'm going to put a new sheet. And so let's say you're talking about carrots. Actually, we'll do date, crop, and we're going to do yield, not yield, units. And we're going to do the quantity. That's what we want to have. So let's say they're all being done on June 1st. You're doing a lot that day. So we're talking about carrots. And then the units, some of them are going to be in pounds, and some of them are going to be in bunches. So here, I'm going to write 100, 200, 150, 60. What you're going to wind up with, and I'm going to just do it on the same sheet here, is if I'm going to use that unique. I'm going to add these together, and I get those, and then I'm going to do equals some ifs, and I'm going to sum if this, that's equal to this, and this, that's equal to this, close parentheses. Did I do this right? No, I didn't do it right. I'm going to also add in right before this. That should right. Yeah, and so now I have the pounds and the bunches. And one of the things that you really like to do, so this is the end result that you get, which is, it's good to have a summary, but let's say you also know that you grew 700 bed feet to get that crop, and you want to have a yield. And in this case, you're going to have a yield that's 2 different units. You can't add that together. If it was just bunches, then you could say, okay, let's go here. You could have your the quantity that harvested, and maybe it's 210, and then your yield would be equal to this divided by this, and so it's 0.3 bunches per bed foot that you did. And so having multiple units is tough. Now, what you can do, and I'm not going to quite integrate it perfectly well here, but is that you want to choose one master unit that you are mainly planning around. And so let's say that master unit, it's a little bit clunky. Let's say for carrots, the master unit is the wrong word, kind of the default unit is you want to know your answer in bunches. So you want to convert these 300 pounds into what they would have been bunches at the end. And so maybe in that case, maybe a bunch is about 3/4 of a pound. So this would be equivalent unit. Is that right word? And so, and then a bunch is yeah. So here, a pound is about 3/4 of a bunch, and a bunch is one bunch. So I could do this equals 300 times 0.75 gives me 225, and then 210. And I could say equals sum, and the total amount is 435. So I know this is a little bit ugly in the way I presented this, but there's two parts to say. In terms of harvest records, whether you put unit pounds or bunches, you want to record what you actually did. But then when it gets time to data analyze data, you're going to have to convert it into one unit that you're going to keep consistently. And so you're going to have a way to turn that into some kind of equivalent unit that turns it into the amount of bunches that it was. And that'll give you the information, a yield that's close enough to what's in the field, to what reality would be. I hope that's not too roundabout in a way to answer that. So yeah, so the data entry, just do it as it is, and then you got to have a way to crunch the harvest. And that's something that the spreadsheets that I put together do have that option of, you plan around one unit. So like you're planning around bunches for your crop plan. But the reality of it is, at a certain point, maybe you have more carrots than you can be able to harvest fresh, and you decide to harvest them all and top them and then treat them as bunches. And then at the end, you want to be looking still in an answer that's similar to bunches or pounds. So there's the answer that I have for that. So I think I'm going to wrap up with that. I think I got all the answers down, and I'm going to say thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing the afternoon with me, my afternoon, and I hope that you all have a fantastic rest of your day, and happy spreadsheets, happy planning, happy farming.